Okay, B2B Dan gang, I have somebody who I've actually met a few years back. And when I saw him on my list to be interviewed for this particular podcast, I got excited and I had to go reminisce a little bit. He runs marketing for an organization. We may or may not talk about that a little bit, but he also is part of the founding group for Content Monster. And so I had the opportunity to track, and you may see him doing some presentations and sharing his knowledge and wisdom on the internet. But Lee's focused on B2B, specifically B2B type of marketing and digital marketing and content creation. So we're going to get some very unique perspectives from somebody who's been doing this a very long time and being able to note the shifts in regards to what we were doing and what is working and what we have to do going forward. Lee, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
What you were talking about is your use and understanding of data and how that fits into that entire one funnel strategy.
Yeah, I mean, without the data, basically, you're going back to old school marketing, where you're just, you're making pins at trade shows and you're sending out flyers and you just spray and pray and you don't look back. In fact, some marketers today are still kind of stuck in that. They tend to do their marketing job and say, hey, I produced a trade show. I produced a web page, or I sent an email out. They think their job is done. They turn away and go into the next campaign. There's a fallacy in that, because if you don't know how well that campaign did or what leads it brought in, how it affected sales, then you don't know if you did a good job or not. If sales can't see an impact on the marketing effort, then you don't know if the marketing effort was a waste or not. So that's where, again, the single funnel comes into play, because if you can't do your marketing to move your prospects down the funnel, then you're not marketing. And that's where your data comes in. You have to analyze what you're doing, who you're engaging with, how they're reacting to your marketing content, how it moves the needle. You really can't separate sales from marketing, and the data is what draws them together.
From a content perspective, and what I see is that a lot of people are essentially dropping a whole lot of golden nuggets on the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the question is, does sales know what marketing is doing? I mean, if marketing is dropping those nuggets out there could be someone. I've seen cases where you have a salesperson out working on a client, a customer, potential customer, and that potential customer has a question, or there's a sticking point that's keeping the deal from moving forward. Meanwhile, the marketer is doing a webinar or a white paper or something that answers that question, but those two aren't communicating. And that's a major place, where a lot of companies fail, is that the communication between sales and marketing. Marketing is creating content to answer questions. Sales is actually on the front line, find out what those questions are. And it goes both ways, because not only does marketing need to let sales know, hey, we have content that answers these questions that will help remove the friction from your sales process. And at the same time, they need to talk to sales, so sales can say, hey, I was out in the field this past month, quarter, year. These are the things that are stopping us. These are the questions that our prospects are asking us. We want to get ahead of our competition. Answer those questions first with content. So, hey, marketing, help us get past this sticking point. If you're watching the data in your funnel, you may see where your prospects are piling up at. You have top of the funnel, you might get down to a sales qualified situation, and you can't figure out why they're getting clogged, why they're not getting past that point. And it could be that your competitor is educating that prospect better than you are. So that content needs to come from your marketing department, but it has to be directed by what sales gives them feedback on.
What is a Lee Judge passionate about right now with content marketing? Or just let me say, digital B2B marketing?
Well, my current passion would be in creating engaging multimedia content, because from multimedia content, every other type of content can be created. And now more than ever, we want to see and hear each other, because there's so much distance because of COVID. We want to make a human connection. We long for human connection. So as a marketer, I'm very passionate about creating video and audio content like podcasts and like what we're doing right now. It's educating with faces, with personalities, to create a human connection. The reason why podcasts I think are working right now is because it tends to be less scripted and it's conversational, which makes it easier to digest and easier to trust, actually, if it's not scripted. So I think even video in that aspect, video that's less scripted, that's more conversational, tends to show more of a personality and build greater trust. And there's no better time, I think, than right now to do that, when perhaps even though the pressure is to see a decent Q4 still, it still doesn't mean you should let off the gas of connecting with your prospects. And I think now prospects are probably more open to being connected with, and they want to hear from people and learn about people. And they may actually be watching more video and podcasts. The numbers are showing that they're actually, because they're home and because their schedule's a little more flexible, that they are spending as much or more time online. And some of that is still with work-related activities, and they're watching those videos and learning about companies and doing their research more so than ever. So it definitely impacts the bottom line, what's going on right now from a positive aspect in regards to content creation and content marketing. Mm-hmm.
How somebody, regardless of late to the game or not, with
Mm-hmm.
all of, everybody, all people focusing on creating more content of all types. I mean, webinars, virtual conferences, and trade shows. I mean, it just goes on and on.
Mm-hmm.
How do I actually stand out and disrupt and make a difference?
So I'm glad you mentioned it as an issue and an opportunity, because that's exactly what it is. The reason why I'm passionate about multimedia content is because the bar is higher. And it isn't necessarily a technical bar, but it's more of an anxiety bar. People are more afraid to get in front of a camera. They're more afraid to talk off script in a podcast. If you can do that, then you're already getting above the noise quite a bit. Now, right now, in the past few months, because my company, we also produce podcasts for companies and video, obviously, we're seeing companies now raising their head going, you know what? A year ago, we were told we should do video, but we weren't really ready to do it yet, or we didn't really want to do it. But now we're hearing that we almost must do it. But even amongst those who realize they need to do it, there's still hesitation. And for those who have the guts to go ahead and do it and, not worry so much about the production quality or, having to go through 10 approval cycles to just get it out there, the ones who have the guts to just record it, hit the record button and get it out there and talk to their prospects, they're going to win. They're already showing that they're winning. Where the flood right now is plain social posts, white papers, trade shows are trying to scramble to redo into virtual. That's where the flood is. But still, the bar of, like I said, not so much technical difficulty, but the guts difficulty to do video and audio, that bar is still pretty high, and that's how you get above the noise. Here's an interesting thing I've noticed is that years ago, and I say years, I mean just 3 or 4, when I'm pushing to sales to say, hey, sales, turn on the camera, you talk to your customer, do a thought leadership video, record your knowledge so you can use that over and over and over to new prospects and not have to re-pitch every time, or reach out, do a video, video LinkedIn video, or do something to communicate with them. 3, 4 years ago, they weren't trying to hear it because they'd say, you know what, I'm more comfortable spending company money, getting on a plane and flying across the country and shaking hands and having breakfast with somebody. That's what they've been doing for years. It's what's comfortable to them. And even though they saw that it wasn't working as well, they even might have seen that their competitors who had more content and who was communicating to them were getting to their customers faster. In fact, they knew there's many, many hard numbers that show how much today's customer researches before they even call a salesperson. But even with that information, sales wasn't ready to do anything. They weren't ready to get past that gut bar I mentioned earlier. But now, as of March, April, May, they've been forced to. So now they're saying, you know what? Let me figure this thing out. Let me figure out how to become that media that my prospect is consuming. Because one of your competitors will figure it out. One of your competitors will be that media that your competitor is consuming. And, Content Monster, we were doing more video before pandemic. Now we're doing more podcast, and we're also bringing in more live video now too, because companies realize that they need to be a media company. There's a company, Jyske Bank, I think, in Denmark. They said a few years back that they're going to be the only media company that has a bank. So they were a bank, but they said we're going to be the only media company that has a bank because they built TV studios and they put out so much content and media that they owned their area of the industry because they were known and heard from so much. And so I think sales staff, sales members, persons are learning now they have to be the content. They have to be more visual. And that barriers, they're going to have to approach that barrier at some point very soon.
Hey, Lee Judge, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom, and we wish you the very best.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Go now to join the B2B DM gang in the B2B Marketer LinkedIn group, where you can connect with other B2B DM disruptors and get access to our B2B DM cheat sheets, checklist, and guides. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, please help by going to iTunes to rate, review, and subscribe. And share the show on all of your digital platforms. Be sure to tune in next week for our next episode. And always remember, you can automate your lead capture, but you must lure your lead.